Alright, welcome everybody to another mixing video. Today we're going to be looking at a few ways of using distortion in a mix. So we'll probably take a look at 3 or 4 different ways. Using tube saturation on a kick drum, using some sort of distortion on a bass guitar, using some distortion on a semi-clean guitar to make it cut through a little bit, and using some distortion on a lead vocal mixed really low underneath it just to give it a little bit of energy. And for that we're going to use an amp simulator, although you can use whatever kind of saturation you want. So let's start with the guitar actually. Okay, so I'll open up my guitar channel and let's take a listen to how it sounds right now.
I lost it.
Okay, so let's check that out. So what I did was I went into my virtual mix rack and I called up another instance of the 1176. And this is a trick that you can do with most 1176 plugins. I don't think I've ever seen one that you can't do this with. But essentially what you do is you turn the compression off, and the way you do that in the virtual mix rack at least is you hold shift and then you click the attack button and it turns the compression off. The UAD ones, it says off at the bottom, and I know that the Waves one says off on the ratio buttons, or maybe it's the metering. But essentially there's some way to turn off the compression, and then you just drive the input and take the output back to start overloading the circuitry of this to get some distortion. And I was exaggerating it there, pushing it as hard as it could go just so you could hear how gritty this can get. And this would be great for making like a fuzz bass type sound or fuzz guitar, but I just wanted it to be subtle, just to where you get a little bit of that grit, just to make this guitar part stand out a little bit more. So yeah, you could try this on different sources, but I thought it worked really well on this guitar here. Okay, next let's go to our kick drum, and we'll listen to our different kick drums, and then we'll apply some saturation.
Sunday in the station, and I'm looking. In the room tonight, you're still far away, and no restless city streets, all this wild lonely dreams. I won't follow that. It lies, I've lost it.
Let me just exaggerate that real quick, and then you can hear that.
Anyway, that you can. Anyway.
So once again, it just gives it a little bit of grit, but not like an audible grit in the track. It just helps bring that kick forward. You get a little bit more of that snappiness from the beater. Gives it some fatness, and it just really works well. Um, on all my tracks, I have tape saturation, but I'm using that more just for tone and helping with the EQ a little bit. But these different saturations and distortions that I'm adding are really for bringing something out of a source. So, that being said, let's go and listen to our bass a little bit, and we'll decide what we're gonna do there.
far across. How can we even go on? Sunday in the station, and I'm looking down the tracks. You can come back now. Everybody's in the room tonight. You're still far away, and no restless city streets, all these wild, lonely dreams. I won't follow them. Somewhere at the bottom of the deep is where I realize I've lost it. Anyway. Empty airport runways, all sand beneath my feet. I can't find you.
Okay, so this is actually a trick that's used a lot. Not necessarily this multi-band distortion, but just using distortion on a bass in general. And generally, I use only either the DI or the bass amp. But to me, I felt like they could have both used a little bit of distortion here. So what I did was I distorted the mid band to kind of bring that bass out because it was being buried a little bit in the track. And once I did that on both the DI and the amp, I felt like a little bit of the bottom felt a little uneven after that. So I just added a very little amount of tube saturation on the bottom on the amp, and to me that just fattened it back up again and made it feel balanced once again. So obviously you have to blend the mix. Sometimes I do this on a send, so that way I can use the return channel to use my mix, but this Quadrafuzz is a really great plugin. It's a multi-band distortion unit that also has like a delay, it has gates, and it has a wet-dry mix right here. So this is a really, really great saturation plugin slash distortion. It has tape, tube, distortion, amp, and I think this is called Decimate or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but anyway, if you have Cubase, check this plugin out. It's really great. I use it a lot. And it's one of my go-tos on bass. So, that's a cool trick that you can try. Let's go to our lead vocal here. And this one will be on a send. And like I mentioned before, we're going to use a amp on this. I'm going to have a mono amp. I'm going to send this to my vocal effects. I'll name this Vocal Distortion. And I'm going to use an amp simulation that came with my Steinberg UR824. That's not the interface I'm using currently, but some of these amps that came with it are really great. Okay, so this is actually supposed to be a clean amp, but you can get quite a bit of distortion out of this actually. So let me go ahead and dial this in and then we'll talk about it.
Someday in the station, and I'm looking down the tracks. You can come back now. Everybody's in the room tonight. You're still far away, and no restless city streets, all these wild, lonely dreams. I won't follow them. Somewhere at the bottom of the deepest well, I realize I lost it. Any way that you can, any way that you can. Any way that you can, any way that you can. Empty airport runways, all sand beneath my feet. I can't find you here. And all the old familiar places, now they only feel so strange. And I fall across the water on some other distant beach, somewhere out of reach. Watch the lights go down along the coastline, disappear. Oh. Any way that you can, any way that you can. Any way that you can. Any way that you can. Go.
Okay, so this is one of my go-to distortions for a vocal, especially since it has this chorus and vibrato. As you can see, I used the chorus on this amp, so I've done a lot of videos on using chorus and different modulation on vocals. So you can probably tell that this is kind of like a 2-in-1 for me on this kind of thing. And I just blend this in ever so subtly. I mean, you could see that this track is hitting minus 30 dB. You can almost barely not even hear it. But to me, it adds some width, adds some depth, and it really it does kind of help bring the vocal forward a little bit too, because you can use the EQ on the amp. So I brought up some of the mids, cut some of the bass. The treble's being cut a little bit. There's a little bit of presence, but the distortion helps add some energy and character to this this vocal, even though it's just barely tucked in underneath. And sometimes with the vocal, what I'll do instead is I'll use something like, let me pull it up here so you can see. I'll use some unison preamps, or any kind of preamp emulation. I know this Steven Slate has some, and I'll do this in parallel too, and I'll just gain it up. In fact, let me just I'll bypass this amp and I'll show you what it sounds like if I'm using the unison plugin, just so you can hear the different color. And I think for this kind of track, I'll actually like this UAD one a little more. Let's go to where there's some singing here. Okay.
Flying, disappearing, low. Any way that you can, any way that you can. Any way that you can, any way that you can. Go, listen in January sun. How can we even go on? Any way that you can, any way that you can. Any way that you can, any way that you can.
Okay, so yeah, to me this one actually works a little bit better for this track. But as you can see, you can use different kind of flavors and different kinds of colors for different tracks. So if you feel like you want to use an amp simulator, try that out. But also try maybe a mic pre and overloading the components in that. This is a tube mic pre, so that tube saturation kind of gives it a little bit of a warmth and body. And to me, it really just brought it forward. So, as with everything that I always show you guys, try it out on your mixes. If you like it, use it. If you don't like it, well, maybe you can use it on a different mix and it'll work. So, not every trick works for every mix. I can't say that enough, but these ideas are just theories for you to try out on your mixes. And I think altogether, these things actually helped this mix. I thought this was a pretty decent sounding mix already, but it corrected a few of these little issues. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something new. If you did learn something new and you did enjoy this, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you can give it a thumbs down. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion, as I always say. If you really liked it, please subscribe. I'm almost to 250 subscribers, which I think is absolutely amazing. Been doing this about 4 months now, and I never ever thought that I would get that far. So it's showing me that you guys are learning something, and I'm so happy to help you guys out. So as always, if you have any questions or you have any video suggestions, leave a comment. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.